Hi, this is Paul Reiser, and you are listening to Everything Fab Four on Salon.com.
Welcome to Everything Fab Four, a podcast focused on fun and intelligent stories about the Beatles. I'm your host, Ken Womack, music culture columnist for Salon.com and a Beatles scholar and historian. No other band, or popular phenomenon for that matter, has enjoyed the global impact the Beatles have and continue to have more than 50 years later. They are part of our human fabric. They created music that continues to bring people together, and just about everyone has their own Beatles story to tell, some that are surprisingly deep and unexpected. This show seeks to draw those stories out in interesting and insightful ways. Remember, it's a Beatles world, and everyone has a story.
You know, my friends, my musical peers at that age, 14, 15, 16, their parents introduced them to the Beatles, right? So they had this whole, that's what they've been listening to their whole life. They were introduced to the understanding of, the significance, the historical significance of this band and how they've changed the trajectory of modern music and the experience of music. I had none of that. So my initial response was just to completely reject it and not listen to it.
Today's guest is renowned multi-instrumentalist and singer-songwriter Jake Clemons. Born in February 1980, Jake has been a member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band since 2012, when he was tapped to play saxophone in place of his late uncle, the legendary big man himself, Clarence Clemons. A lifelong musician, Jake studied jazz performance at the Virginia Governor's School for the Arts. Jake has toured extensively with Springsteen and the E Street Band, handling saxophone, percussion, and backing vocal duties on the Wrecking Ball World Tour, the High Hopes Tour, the River Tour, 2017's Australia and New Zealand Summer Tour, and the recently completed 2023-2025 Tour. He has also mounted tours with the Jake Clemons Band, which has crisscrossed the globe, including stints in North America, Europe, and Australia. Over the years, Jake has performed with such acts as The Roots and The Swell Season, and artists such as Eddie Vedder and Roger Waters. In 2017, Jake released his debut solo album entitled Fear and Love. Critics lauded the LP's honest storytelling and powerful emotional resonance. The album enjoyed praise for its heartfelt, emotionally charged songwriting across rock, R&B, and funk genres, not to mention Jake's inventive and highly textured sax solos. Jake will be performing at the Everything Fab Four Fest, taking place this November 6th through 8th at the Berkeley Oceanfront Hotel in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where we'll be celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Beatles' Rubber Soul album. Visit ef4fest.com for more information and to book your tickets today. Welcome, Jake. I'm going to start with a really ironic question. Do you come from a musical background?
Yeah, I come from a very musical background. Probably on both sides, but for sure on my dad's side of the family. There's an incredible amount of phenomenal musicians on that side of the family, and I'm not necessarily considered super talented in regards to my family.
So you're when would you say your earliest memories of picking up an instrument are?
I usually say it was my first language. We had a piano in the house, and I can very vividly remember just playing around on that as a kid. My dad had a lot of instruments in the house because he was a band director for the Marine Corps. So there's a lot of exposure to different instruments, and I remember being a little kid in the backseat of the car, my dad quizzing me on what I was hearing in the symphony, that I was playing on the radio. Violins, violas, trumpets. There's a symphony, so a lot of that as a kid.
Oh, wow. And so when you went to school, then obviously you were playing in I'm guessing the band or no?
Yeah, I started band in like the standard regular sixth grade. Yeah, I guess the summer before that, my dad had gotten me onto the saxophone the summer before, so I picked it up a little bit earlier than the rest of the kids in class.
It's always good to have that edge.
Yeah, it was a little window, but it was an effective one.
Now, where does your uncle play in all of this then?
Yeah, so Clarence's role was pretty interesting, I guess. In the sense that like he was my uncle, like he was just my uncle, and everybody played music on that side of the family. So, yeah, like, and the band was just, an extension of my uncle's, so it didn't seem like out of the ordinary. I can remember, being in third, fourth grade, like it just didn't seem weird that my family was on the radio. I just assumed that was commonplace. I guess I took it for granted is the point. But the heart and soul of it was always there. And seeing Clarence play with the band for the first time when I was 8 years old just shook my world, really changed the trajectory of my life at that point.
Oh, wow. So how so? You're 8 years old and you're...
I guess to be fair, my trajectory wasn't very, it wasn't very strong at that point anyway. Oh. I will say at that age, I really enjoy science. And I had it in my mind to be a biologist until then. My brother went that route, but yeah, watching Clarence play and seeing the audience's response to the saxophone, in a pure moment of vanity, complete vanity. After hearing this big introduction and this huge response to my uncle, I decided that people love the saxophone. And that's clearly the best instrument on the stage based on the response, completely detaching the fact that Clarence was a personality and a source of enormous charisma outside of the horn.
Oh, right. So was he a personality growing up in the family too?
Everybody's super chill on my dad's side of the family. My dad would be the exception, I suppose, just being a Marine Corps officer. But
yeah,
and there's certainly a line. I didn't grow up with my dad's father or mother. Like they were very strict. My father was very strict, but in terms of like the hang, everybody's super laid back and really casual. So I don't remember what my point was with that, but it was a super vibe.
So when you were obviously seeing Bruce in the band in the late 80s and then developing as a musician, what kind of music did you start listening to? What were your interests and influences?
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad was really strict. So we weren't allowed to listen to anything except for marching band music and gospel and classical.
So you weren't turning on the radio and listening to the hits of 1990 necessarily.
That wasn't happening. Well, I guess like by 1990, I was sneaking it for sure, but I wasn't allowed to. We weren't turning on the radio to listen to that. Absolutely, there was a lot of classic, Brahms, Beethoven. I mean, we didn't even listen to jazz. It was classical music, Shirley Caesar, Andre Crouch, gospel, and John Philip Sousa, who reigned supreme in my dad's house.
Wow. Well, this is fascinating. So I wonder, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, it's a good thing in the sense that, right, you're learning theory, you're learning all sorts of musical and notational aspects, but
yeah, like in the house, we weren't necessarily paying attention to the theory as much. Just listening. I would say that we learned like harmony and melody and rhythm along those lines. But Yeah, I often wonder if that hurt me or helped me. What it did do is gave me a completely clean slate when I became interested in music. So, or when I became interested in music outside of my dad's house, I should say, you know. um, and yeah, I mean, that was an interesting road in of itself. You know, we didn't listen to rock and roll. It was like, you know, that was not godly music. So we couldn't listen to that. So, like, you know, we had Clarence's records and Bruce's records on the shelf, but we did not listen to those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to pop those in. So when we got to go to the show, when I was 8, it was kind of a big deal, you know. We were there to support my uncle, but I had never heard electric distorted guitars before. It was a very foreign experience. So, yeah, you know, but I also had, you know, a couple older brothers and an older sister, and you know, by several years, 8, 7, 5 years, who had a lot of experiences going on. They were a little older than me. So by the time I was like, you know, 10, 11, 12, I was, you know, sneaking out, getting, you know, with my friends and listening to some things that I wasn't allowed to. And I, you know, I remember vividly being in my brother's car. He was home from college, and he put in Nirvana, Nevermind, the record, and forced me to sit in the car and listen. And he was just driving, you know. I was stuck with him for the day, and I hated it. All I heard was, you know, a broken television. I just was so unfamiliar with the sense of distortion and the rasp, that it felt like torturous to me for most of that ride, until I finally was like, okay, like, clearly people are listening to this. There's got to be some redeeming quality. Like, let me just try to hone in before I lose my mind completely. Let me just try to hone in on something that I can, like, attach myself to, because my brother is like just side A, side B, side A, side B for the whole day on the record. So, yeah, I managed to just like find one nugget to hold on to, and it blew my mind and opened everything up. You know, I attached myself to the sound of that, the empathy in his voice, and the pain, and started to understand exactly what was happening in the sound I was hearing and why it was sounding that way. You know, the importance of the message it was conveying. And yeah, by the time I got out of the car, it was my favorite band. You know, like I fell in love with it. So that just broke things wide open. At that point, I discovered that there's a lot of music that I might not naturally be inclined to appreciate, but I learned how to listen. You know, I learned how to find some sense of value in it, to make a connection, and to really appreciate sounds that, yeah, I wasn't naturally inclined to appreciate, you know, based on the nurturing of my childhood, I suppose.
When you went to college, did you study music in that setting?
No. No, I went to a specialized high school program in Virginia. So we did like our, you know, math, science, history courses for half the day. And then we would go to, at the time it was on a university campus. So I was taking classes with other students like me, but also university students, and learning. I was studying jazz performance at that time. Yeah. And then once I got out of high school, I jumped in a tour van and booked it. So I've been playing professionally on the local circuit since I was, I don't know, like 14, I guess, somewhere around there.
And that program was at the Virginia Governor School of the Arts?
That's right. Yes, it is.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal program. They do incredible work. I'm really honored that my daughter's actually there now. She's studying visual art, and yeah, they're just like they're multidisciplinary. So visual art, dance, music, and then all of the other like smaller disciplinaries within those: jazz, classical, theater. It's an amazing program.
Now I have to ask this. And please forgive me. Well, don't forgive me, because it's an important question. So when you were having these musical experiences, and you were sort of sneaking outside and listening to other music, other bands, etc. Was there a moment when you had a chance to encounter the Beatles?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and it was an interesting encounter. My friends, my musical peers at that age, 14, 15, 16, their parents introduced them to the Beatles, right? So they had this whole, that's what they've been listening to their whole life. They were introduced to the understanding of the significance, the historical significance of this band and how they've changed the trajectory of modern music and the experience of music. I had none of that. So
it was a blank slate.
It was a blank slate. So as far as I was concerned, they were just the cool, popular band that my peers would love. I'm a little bit of a beat to my walk to my own beat, So my initial response was just to completely reject it and not listen to it, and which is really silly. But when someone said Beatles, I would say Kinks, but not really based off of acknowledging the experience. It was just I wasn't gonna do a deep dive on the Beatles. Eventually, I came around, and as I say, we all have to surrender to the truth at some point. But yeah, it was a fun exposure experience to the Beatles. My really good friends, the two brothers, Josh and Jason Crougy, were really big fans of the Beatles. My friend Ryan Corbett, huge fan of the Beatles, and we had this contention for a long time. But when I finally surrendered to it, it was then met with disdain, because every time I would try to do something interesting or create something interesting, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's this song," and I was like, "Those, they get one opportunity to explore and get in the studio, and then they just decide to do everything. That's not cool. Nothing for the rest of us for the rest of time." But they really pinpointed the foundations of modern music. They obviously took what was happening at the time, but they were able to consolidate it and make it really accessible for a lot of people across the spectrum. They are constantly exploring and innovating, and so it took me a while to get over my jealousy of the band once I started to appreciate them. But yeah, so like I said, it's just been a really cool journey, which led into later just being okay, I need to study these guys clearly, because they have touched on everything, and they have influenced every piece of modern music. So studying their process became important to me.
Do you have a favorite album?
It's funny. I was thinking, well, all right. So, no, I don't think I could say I have a favorite album, but I was thinking of this yesterday. I have had this idea that I've really loved in my head of doing instrumental covers of Beatles songs from those two records, Rubber Soul and Revolver. And the thought process is to call it Rubber Revolver. I think a really cool way to make a funky, homage record to, one of the most important bands of all time.
There's something interesting that happens with popular music, and I know obviously it's whether it's Bruce or the Beatles or whomever, it's created so that you have the full experience of lyrics merging with music, et cetera, to whole, right? But there is something that does happen, interestingly, when you take the lyrical part of that equation out to see if it can stand on its own.
Yeah.
And of course, right, sometimes you take the lyrics away and all you have is a pretty dull structure sitting there.
Yeah.
But other times, I'll even give you a Springsteen example. I was listening to just Roy Bittan's piano part from Jungleland the other day.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a damn song in itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not every song in the popular realm or any realm, I guess, can do that. And that will be an interesting project to see how those songs do or do not stand up when you take that space away.
Yeah.
Is the energy still there?
Right. Sure. Yeah. 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 It just seemed like a fun thing to experiment with, and clever. I have an old car that I get to take out on occasion, but it's a 1962. So like, I only have music of that era that plays in that vehicle. So my kids have gotten to be introduced to a lot of Beatles via that vehicle. So it's been a fun process. But for all of the records they've put out, it's again, it's a journey. They put out just like pure pop at first, and then just started to explore deeper and deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole. And by the time you get to like Let It Be, it's like, you've truly gone on an epic. It's an epic odyssey. It's amazing what they were able to do just to record.
Were you able to, before you joined the E Street Band, were you able to have some similar moment then with the Bruce corpus? Was there a moment like that, or where you were able to, after you got outside of the influence of the household and marching band music, were you able to have that experience and sort of lift up the hood on that?
That would introduce a whole other dilemma. I was a saxophone player, so I grew up watching like VH1 Behind the Music, and all these stories of like the rock and roll journey and like nepotism and stuff like that, and I was terrified of it. I was like, gosh, like I just like I don't want to face that. I don't want to deal with that. So as a saxophone player, it was important to me to really distinguish myself away from that. So I intentionally like didn't learn any E Street songs. I intentionally didn't study any of those saxophone parts. In fact, professionally, for several years, I changed my last name professionally just to give myself some distance and allow myself to stand on my own 2 feet, and build my career foundationally from that. And I very intentionally did not study those parts. It wasn't really until I guess on the Magic tour, I was hanging out with Clarence a lot in rehearsals, and just kind of like sitting with him, listening to parts and learning them sonically, but not playing them, But I'd started to build an appreciation for E Street. Again, like, super late, like in my early 20s. And it built from there. What made it really exciting is, when I stepped into this role, which was like a really painful process at first.
Why was that?
Because every note was a tear, when I stepped into this role, it was because Clarence wasn't there, and it killed me. Like I did not, I didn't want that, I wanted him. I wanted him, and I wanted him to be there playing those notes. But the beautiful thing of being able to dive deep into his essence and to the value of his notes, and like really like listening into his every breath, his inflection, to understand the intention behind what he was playing, and study it fresh for the first time deeply that way, really became a really beautiful part of my process. And I'm saying, like, it was like 9 hours a day, where I was like, it was really deep. This is the first time since high school that my lips bled from playing, I adored that time, and I still do, like it's still something that I get to go back on, deep cuts, and just enjoy the beauty and the power that is the big man.
It sure is. I get the privilege every spring of teaching Bruce on campus here at Monmouth, and
nice.
We spend when we get to Born to Run, a good amount of time just on that key section of Jungleland, right? We follow along with the music. We see how different people approach it, and I was very fortunate to see you do it on the beach last year. Mm-hmm. In the Asbury Park show, and you just blew it out of the water. And it is one of those those sections, right, where every note is very significant.
Yeah.
It is so carefully plotted because it's part of the story that's being told lyrically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit
absolutely.
about how you about playing that? It's just so magnificent.
Man, it's an deeply intense song for me to play. And for a long time, it was so hard for me to not get lost. Just because like I have all these visions coming back to me of being with Clarence. And yes, it was for a long time it was really hard to just like to not just get lost in those thoughts, and then to be like, oh my gosh, I'm here with 70,000 other people. Like I need to really like hone it into the moment, and that's not an easy process to do. But that night was extra significant, because it was the first time that the band had played like a GA ticketed open to the public event in Asbury Park as E Street. And, the place where that band, really like got its start. So for it to take a 50-year journey for that to happen, and for me to be the one to play Jungle Land, in that setting for the first time, it was really powerful. And very difficult. But I get to a place where I can kind of just like not focus on memories from the past as much and just feel his presence there with me. Like he's there, and we play those notes together. It's such an interesting saxophone solo. Because at its rawest form, it's like the theme is repeated, several times, but like it becomes so powerful. It's like telling your son, like, I love you. I love you. I love you. They're the same words, but like the expression becomes deeper and more intense every time you hear it. It's really a masterful work of empathetic notation. It's
art. Yeah. And the way it announces itself, when it cuts through all the noise, and of course, that's the most important moment because you've got to cut through the noise, right? And
but like I said, like I'm almost at this point, when I'm focused enough, I'm able to stand there and let Clarence like almost like move through me and enjoy listening, So,
Well, kudos on bringing those parts to life in such powerful ways. I remember thinking that day, I really want to see the guys again, but I don't want to stand on a beach. And I'm so glad I did. Because I turned to my wife when Meeting Across the River was playing. I said, I think.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, like right there, on the water, like that's the sense of feeling what that song is saying. Just those stories that are being told and the place that they were created, like an all-time experience, by far.
I was just listening to your new song, which is it's a no holds barred, very powerful anti-war song, right?
Yeah.
And I had just read in our conflicted times, someone had written, "Where are the protest song?" I mean, there it is, right?
Yeah. Well, there's something happening where people are lifting their voices. There's been a lot of people that have been kind of digging in and saying something. But that's the turn of the tide is slow but powerful. I'm grateful to be aware of it as it's happening, and to be invoked to create through it, and to share those expressions to hopefully encourage other people to be in the water and to be a part of it.
Well, I think you're showing tremendous leadership in a space where not a lot of folks are. Obviously, Mr. Springsteen is too.
Yeah.
In big ways.
Absolutely.
And it's so meaningful, and it just lets the song Stop All Wars, right? And I was, I couldn't help but obviously the song stands on its own, but I thought of Mr. Lennon, right? And saying very simply, why are we still doing this?
Yeah.
Just so meaningful, and I just love what you do.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that.
And we are so excited to have you at the upcoming Rubber Soul event. There is tremendous buzz, as rightly there should be.
That's great. That's great. I'm thrilled. It's going to be an awesome night. A lot of times for these kinds of things, there's a lot of questions in my head about all right, so what's the story? What's the message? Reaching for that connection for what's happening on the ground, and it doesn't really unfold itself fully until we're on the stage, but I am excited in a way that I'm not normally excited about the show, because it just has I already feel such a fun energy from it, and yeah, I'll be thrilled to get that thing rocking, and to ignite some sort of feeling in people that is expressive and joyful and deep and meaningful, and yeah, hopefully a very powerful night for November.
Everything Fab Four is presented by Salon.com, the premier news, politics, innovation, and arts website. For more information, visit everythingfab4.com, where you can learn more about our podcast and my latest Beatles-related book, Living the Beatles Legend, The Untold Story of Mal Evans. The Everything Fab Four theme song, Seize the Day, is provided courtesy of Black Rabbit, the high-octane Beatles cover band, an innovative psychedelic rock project from Rockaway Beach, Queens in New York City. Like what you heard today on Everything Fab Four? Be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, and recommend the show to your friends. Plus, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EF4 Podcast. Distributed by Salon.com, Everything Fab Four is a Wonderwall production. Remember, it's a Beatles world, and everyone has a story.